Welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be looking at writing a great role-playing character. However, a lot of these tips, a lot of this advice that we're talking about today could be applied to your general writing as well. The main idea today is to try and avoid cliches or avoid ideas that are very common in the kind of fiction that you're writing. Cliches and tropes are the worst nightmare of any writer. And we'll look at this as if you're playing D&D or you're looking at the fantasy genre. So examples of the fantasy genre, examples include the White Knight, the Black Knight, the Evil One, the orphan who turns out to be a prince, the typical Prince and the Pauper story. The goody two-shoes cleric.
You're good, Ash. You're a goody little two-shoes. You're a goody little two-shoes.
The nurturing druid who only cares about nature. The charming rogue, etc. And this is not an exhaustive I can't speak. This is not an exhaustive list of all the different kinds of characters that you would face. These are just very common characters that you would find in this kind of fiction. And the thing is, we need to try and think as a writer or GM is to try and think of unique and interesting combinations of characteristics, things that make the character interesting, stand above all the common trash that you find everywhere. And the way to do this is like in my last video when I talked about how to create different traits and character motivations. Also think about the same ways of your characters, whether they're a player character, characters that are populating your world, NPCs, it doesn't really matter. The main villain it could be as well. So list a few traits and motivations for your character. So we'll take this example of the White Knight and see how we can make interesting traits and motivations for this kind of a character. You know, typical traits could be they're very honorable, that they are a protector of the innocent, that they're a soldier in their past life before they became an honorable warrior. They could be just good at fighting in general. But how can we think about these traits in an interesting or unique way? We need to break them down. And we need to question the reasons why that the character has these traits. The reason that one person is honorable may be completely different to another character being honorable. There may be a specific reason as to why. We need to kind of uncover that reason. You know, and we have to think about that this character is a protector of the innocent and also a soldier. This is quite a typical combination that you can make interesting because soldiers necessarily aren't always protectors of the innocent. So could these two traits actually be at odds within the character and create an internal conflict? And also he or she is good at fighting. How are they good at fighting? Where did they train? Who did they train with? Was he or she forced to learn? Or was it something that they just fell into naturally? And answering these questions allows you to start building a bit of a background, a bit of a flavour for this character. And flavour here is very typical of my writing practice because I always want to try and think of a way that a normal soldier could be very different from thousands of others that he serves with. You know, so if we look at why he's honourable now, in his past he could have been unhonourable by slaying a foe when he did not pose a threat. For example, the Kingslayer trope, which is another one you have to be careful of. You know, they could have given up being honourable for a specific reason. Maybe their family suffered because of it. And with that honour that he has now, maybe that's why he's a protector of the innocent. Maybe he's trying to hold on to that honour. Maybe he's trying to overcompensate for that wrongful thing that he did in his past. Maybe the knight did something that his commanders wanted him to do, however ended up costing the lives of innocents. That could also make him distrust authority figures. Or maybe even just distrust the motivation behind their actions and their commands. You know, when you think about why he's a very good fighter, why did he become a soldier in the first place, how is he good at fighting, who did he train with? Maybe they were set on their path by a great swordsman or somebody who he lived with when he was younger. Or maybe somebody who raised him, his father, a family figure maybe. And this could also make for an interesting NPC that you could create and populate your world or your book with. Maybe they actually idolize this person and that's one of their motivations in the story is to try and meet or to gain their acceptance. Maybe that's the reason why they're trying to be honourable now, is because they're afraid of getting judged by their idol. And those traits that we brought up in the beginning are now a little bit more in depth. They start to give this bit of a flavour to the character, which is not just a typical white knight in shining armour anymore. Yes, they're a white knight, but there's very complicated reasons as to why their character are like the way they are, which would help you react in a given situation when you're acting as that NPC. You've got these key traits that you go back to. For example, if the players do some sort of impromptu thing which hurts the innocent, that would obviously trigger a opposite reaction in our NPC character or important NPC. And the next biggest advice that I can give to you is to create characters that have lots of flaws. Flaws make characters human. People love characters that have flaws because they're identifiable, they are relatable for the audience. You know, flawed characters are the ones with room to grow. Those are the ones that stick in people's minds. They become the favourites. For example, in a mage campaign that I'm running right now, one of the characters is very bombastic. They are very pretentious. Their personality is larger than life. They kind of ignore the little things and they're very direct, which is a flaw in itself, but makes the characters instantly know when that character turns up, or regret or hate that character. It creates a reaction. The whole point there is it creates a reaction from the players, from the audience. Also, flawed NPCs, flawed characters, as a game master, as a writer, they're the most interesting NPCs and most interesting characters to create, or even play, to role play and act aloud. And heck, like I said, all of these tips can be applied to your writing of short stories and your books as well. So going back to that White Knight character, let's think of some flaws for that character now. And for these flaws, let's try and contrast the traits that we've given them. Contrasting traits creates conflict. And conflict, at the end of the day, that's what we want. That's what makes interesting stories. So for example, he's an honorable knight. However, if you are honorable, you could also be a liar. You want to save your face to appear honorable in certain situations. And maybe he lies about his background because of that guilt, because of that wrongdoing that he did. Maybe he never states that he worked under that certain lord that he now distrusts. Maybe he lies about not trusting authority figures, and maybe he hides that from the player characters. And maybe hides it from the other characters in your story, but the audience know. And he protects the innocent. However, maybe he's a bit prejudiced in his protection of the innocent. Maybe he has a specific type that he likes to protect. Obviously, the cliche here is the white knight in shining armor that always saves the damsel in distress. However, maybe you can make an interesting type of a character that he always defends first. A white knight saving an animal always is very different. A druid you would understand, but a white knight, there must be a reason there. That makes them interesting. For example, if a fight broke out in a tavern, maybe he chooses to defend the barkeep, who ironically is an authority figure. However, there must be a reason in the background. Maybe he used to work in a tavern before he met his idol and was put on this path to become a great soldier, a great knight. Maybe he's an alcoholic and there's a comical reason there. Maybe he's trying to protect where his next drink comes from. However, it could remind him of his father, who pushed him on this path to become a great warrior, maybe because he didn't want him to work in a tavern himself. Even though we're just talking here about these random traits and they're not fully developed, we're giving further depth to this cliched character, or potentially cliched character, and making them something a little bit more original, something a bit more interesting for an audience to witness. Something fun, engaging, interesting for the audience, potentially comical if it's because of the alcohol. And again, that's the key point. At the end of the day, your audience, whether it's a reader, whether it's other players in your role-playing game, they're all here to have fun and tell a communal story together. And they want to be entertained and thrilled, and potentially leave the end of the day with a bit of a thought or two, whizzing around in those noggins. And that's all you can ask for really as a writer, as a GM. Because things won't go as planned, readers will interpret things in different ways. Your player characters will totally go off the beaten path and you'll have to come up with impromptu characters. Again, quickly thinking about these ideas on the fly will allow you to quickly develop those ideas. So please, if you enjoyed these tips, please leave a comment down below. I'll be happy to chat about your writing and about your role-playing projects. Also, I'm planning on doing one of my first write-along videos, a new concept that I've just come up with recently. I want you to comment, tweet, or send me a message. I want it to be a sentence or two, a basic character idea. And then I'm going to choose 2 or 3 people. I've already had a few submissions. And I'm going to make a video where I do this style of video and I'm going to help develop these ideas by developing some traits, some motivations, some flaws. Try to flesh out this character a little bit for you and hopefully trying to give you ideas for your own books, for your own role-playing, and hopefully get you out a bit of a writing stump, because I've been in one recently and it isn't fun being stuck indoors all the time. You need fresh air. You need to be able to meet and socialize, even if you're an introvert, because I'm an introvert myself. But you need that constant interaction to come up with new ideas. So this is what I'm trying to do. And I hope it really gives you a springboard to developing new ideas. So I look forward to your submissions. And please don't forget to like this video if you really thought that this helped you. Subscribe please so you don't miss out on any future content. Can't say my words today. And please share this video with people who you think would even find just a little bit of this advice interesting. I'll create a PDF of the notes that I made today to download for your own reference. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one and I'll enjoy looking at your submissions.